Welcome to Namefi podcast. Namefi is a blockchain technology company that tokenizes domain ownership for trading, DeFi, and an ownable internet. We regularly hold Twitter spaces and have conversations with our founder friends, partners, and community members. We turn our conversations into this podcast channel. If you like it, follow us on Twitter at Namefi_IO, NAMEFI_IO, and join our next live NamefiSpace. Thank you.
The moment a buyer comes in and buys the NFT, they become the owner of the property. So it takes like 30 seconds to close transactions. A transaction compared to the usual process that can take weeks. What else can you do with NFT? You can use it as collateral.
The trust instrument that we have built is extremely flexible, rooted in concepts of private contract and the ability to represent control and ownership of the trust via the NFT, be able to transact on that NFT in the way that we're used to on-chain, instantly, permissionlessly, and have that update.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining Namefi, our first RWA session. This was actually an idea from East Denver when Fedi and I met, and we realized that our common goal is to push forward useful or real-world assets, bring them on chain. And then we started to push for this coalition, Namefi, Fabrica Land, and a bunch of other projects. So this namespace today is kind of a kickoff for that effort, for a joint coalition between Namefi, Fabrica Land, and other projects that we'll onboard and we will kind of bring in. And to our very honor, Fabrica Land founder Fedi and Daniel is here, and also Sam, our common investor and also a good friend of both of us, is on stage today. The entire session will be 1 hour. We'll have a few questions for our guests and also for everyone who's interested. This is a casual event just like usual, so feel free to raise your hand to get on stage. We'll open up the microphone after a few questions to get started. And now let me turn over for Sunny, my co-host, to give our distinguished guests a proper introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Victor, and hello, everyone, GM. So today we're really happy to have invited Fabrica and Sam to the space. So let me give a brief intro about Fabrica and the co-founders of Fabrica first. So just like NameFi, which is tokenizing domains, Fabrica's mission is to tokenize land. So making land programmable and enabling real estate operations between its stakeholders to be conducted on decentralized ledger networks. So Fidi is the CEO of Fabrica. Fidi has been a serial entrepreneur. So he transitioned into founding Fabrica as CEO in 2019 after numerous successes in Web 1 and Web 2 ventures. So with a background in software engineering, Fidi began his startup journey in Italy, eventually creating a European network of websites under the domain name tonight.eu during the very early days of Web 2. So where he indexed all of the websites related to what to do tonight in the European websites. So he later worked as an innovator manager at Vodafone, which is Europe's largest telecom provider, and founded his own business incubator accelerator, iStarter, in Italy after he left Vodafone. And also, he ventured into the Bay Area after Vodafone. Fidi co-founded this B2B startup called Foam.id, which simplifies users' authentication processes for companies, which served 6 billion users worldwide, and which make Fidi a really competent entrepreneur in the Web3 space. And it will be a really exciting opportunity today to listen how Fidi perspective changes over the history of the web. And then let me introduce Daniel. So Daniel is the co-founder of Fabrica. Daniel has been a very important figure of Fabrica's journey since its very early days. So Daniel's expertise actually lies in making the trust instrument that Fabrica employs to hold title and in championing the regulatory initiatives crucial for integrating land as the real-world assets or real estates, in this case, onto the blockchain. So different from Fidi, Daniel actually had a very deep experience in real estate before joining Fabrica. So Daniel garnered a wealth of experience in real estate sector. He worked as a legal advisor for the East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative in the United States. And then he also tried entrepreneurship by founding HomeSlice in 2017, a real estate startup that aimed to innovate within the industry. And so today really offers a great opportunity for us to dive into the story of how Fidi and Daniel came together and kind of choose the area of land tokenization in the domain of Web3. So last but not least, our special guest, Sam, who serves as the investor for both Namefi and Fabrica. So Sam is the co-founder and general partner of Blow Accelerate VC, so whose portfolio also includes NFT.fi and EigenLayer. So today, Sam will join us on our space as a special speaker to contribute his perspective in real-world asset tokenization from an investor's perspective. Yeah, it would be super nice to hear about why Sam is investing in real-world asset tokenization. So I will hand over to Victor. Victor will be asking the questions to Fidi and Daniel. And along the way, Sam will be contributing his perspectives in RWA tokenization.
Right. Yes. So thank you, Sunny, for the introduction. That's very helpful to lay the foundation and context for teammates or for our friends in the call who might have been following the space of domains and tokenizing domains to also get interested understanding where Fabrica land comes from. I also want to give a warm greeting to Chase, who's a good friend of mine. And also, I see Michael Seiger in our listening, a very well-respected friend in the space, founder of DNA Academy. So if you have time, if it's available to you, we'd love to invite you on stage as well. But let me turn over to Fadi and Daniel. Everyone probably are very, very interested in the story, how you started Fabrica Land. It's not easy. Like we choose domain because it was easier to tokenize. Lands are big, a huge market, a lot of history, a lot of jurisdictions. So how did you get started with the journey of this Fabrica Land, tokenizing land and real estate? Fadi, Daniel, whoever want to speak.
Thank you, Victor. I'll take it. So the story behind Fabrica is that when I moved to the US, so I'm Italian and I moved to the US in around 2015. After a while, I decided to buy a house here in the US. And I went through the process of finding the house and understanding with a real estate agent, how the process would look like. And when we picked one, we went through that process. And apart from the emotional stress of doing a very big investment personally, this second thing that was pretty surprising was how in the US the real estate transactions are performed. And I was expecting a lot from the Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco in terms of a super modern process and workflow and cool application to do it. But the reality is that, yes, you could look for houses on beautiful websites, sort of the Web 2 approach, Web 1, I would say. But then when it came to the moment of closing the transaction, it was very, very old school. And it was performed through notaries, fingerprints, deeds, and county records and title agency. And it was pretty expensive too. And that was kind of surprising of how the largest asset in the world was still transacted through very, very antiquated tools. They were working fine and we are all used to that, but it was very far from what I was seeing in the startup world and what was happening in terms of digitizing assets or coming up with natively digital assets. And so clearly, became natural to think hey, eventually this asset class will come on chain. And that's how we started. And from there, we started looking at easy first initial attempts of how can we bring something on chain, like a small plot of land. And we discovered a whole market in the US of land traders. And that has been our entry point in the market. And while fulfilling that need of easier, faster, simpler transactions, we researched and studied a lot around the legal instrument to perform that, processing the regulatory approaches that needed to be solved to make it all this possible. So that's the story behind it. Daniel, I don't know if you want to add something, you join us very, very early in the journey. So I'm actually pretty curious to hear your version of the story.
Sure. Happy to jump in. I think when I first got introduced to Fabrica, I was very deeply interested in the world of property tech. and in particular in the ways that we access and utilize real estate from a little bit more modern perspective. And the first time that I heard what Fabrica was looking to build and what they wanted me to come on to work on was kind of a mind-blowing moment for me. The idea that foundational piece of real estate could be natively digital. And the sort of unlock that you get from there opens up a world of possibilities. I mean, everyone's used to, on good market days, opening up Zillow and looking at local property. But the idea of being able to put a checkout button on that page was something that really kind of shook my understanding of what was possible. And, we've been working on this for a long time now, but I don't think that fundamental vision has changed much. It really is, how do we make real estate transactable in a way that fits with how we transact on basically everything else in our lives these days?
Fede, Daniel, I would love to hear a little bit more about your heavy users, the profile of the land traders, because particularly what's enticing in being able to trade land on chain is coming to the forefront for the heavy users. If you're trying to flip land, buy large pieces, cut them into smaller pieces, and turn around and sell it for a profit, there's a whole cottage industry of land flippers that is, I call it cottage, but it's actually pretty sizable. Can you tell us a bit about their pain point and how their user flow would have been with and without Fabrica?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Sam. So we work with land flippers, and these are like companies that basically buy plots of land below market price, and they flip the properties, the very same properties as they are. In many cases, they don't even go to see the properties, and they flip the properties for a big profit. And it's pretty interesting and fascinating to see how they operate. So their main way to acquire the properties is to basically send out thousands of postcards to property owners, offering a low offer to the property to buy the property from the current owner. And think of this, like in the US alone, there are like over 1 million plots of land. So you can send a lot of postcards if you want. And out of the thousands of postcards that you send, some of them will say, okay, you know what? I've been sitting on that property for a long time. I'm paying property taxes. I don't really use it. I could use the cash. So they sell these properties to the land flipper. The land flipper takes the property and markets the property properly online. So they send a drone pilot to take some videos of the properties. They create marketing material like description, features of a property, what's in the neighborhood, and so on. And they publish a listing on several marketplaces, their mailing list, they have like the distribution channels and so on. So let's say that they buy a property for something like $20,000 from the original owner. They're usually able to flip it in around 6 months for 3 times the price they paid. So it's a pretty interesting margin, you can say. And they do that on several properties every year. So they can do it. We have seen people like flipping up to 100 properties per year. Now, what's the issue with this business? There are 2 problems, actually. One is the process is involved. So when you are acquiring a property, it's something that takes weeks and it goes through the whole manual process. And there's a lot of research involved, a lot of legal documents to be drafted specifically for the county or the states where the property is located. There's an issue with like moving the money. So the payments, it goes through an escrow, or like how do I pay the current owner? And the same issue is when they sell the property. So they have like their customers who want to buy the properties and they have to go again through this process. And again, it can take weeks and it can cost thousands of dollars every time. So for them, that's a big pain that makes their business not only goes slow, but it also affects like the friction. It's a high friction point for both the buy side and the sell side. So they have customers who walk away because of those processes. And so for them, it's very, very important to make so that they can enable something like a buy now button and like just sell the land online, which is one of the things that we basically enable with our approach. The second problem that it's important to highlight is that when they acquire properties, they are clearly like buying and putting the money down to buy the property. So if they buy a $20,000 property, then it takes 6 months for them to sell it. They don't have the capital till they sell it to buy another property. So they're limited by the number by the capital they have at hand, that limits their ability to acquire and have a larger portfolios of properties for sale. So you typically see those land flippers, they start with a limited number of properties, and then it takes some time for them to ramp up the business. And how do we solve that? Well, we solve that by allowing those property owners or flippers to use those properties as collateral and get a loan on their properties so they can borrow against their inventory effectively. And that allows them to leverage their business and acquire more properties and speed up their whole operations, basically. So we think these are like two most powerful features or functionalities that we provide to them now. And that's why we are like in great relationship with many of them.
That's great. Yeah, super helpful. I value the use case of being able to add velocity to money on the part of the land flippers and being able to transact so much more easily so that you don't have to go to a old school title insurance and escrow company, but you can rely on smart contracts to do those transactions.
Totally. Interestingly, Sam, you actually invested in Fabrica Land years ago, right? Now we see Fabrica Land launched, and then the NFT can be sold and bought online. And then we saw our friend Sean Marie put on the land and do the lending. But before that, what was your thesis entering this deal, like investing in Fabrica? And what do you see expected, and what do you see that you didn't expect it now that they launched? Do you want to share a little bit, Sam?
Yeah, sure. So in our Web3 space, we like three-letter acronyms. First, the ICOs, now RWAs. I'll put an asterisk on that. There's more to say. I think when we invested, RWA as a concept, a key term, wasn't even very well popular at the time. My main point was we just have superior ledgers to keep track of assets and do transactions. At some time t in the future, masses move slow, but new ledgers will outperform in transactional capabilities compared to the old ledgers. So I thought, would I rather go to an NFT marketplace, see the credentials of land, see a checkbox that it's verified, taxes are paid, and gain ownership and control of a trust that owns land that I can easily offboard to my name if I ever wanted to. But now that it's onboarded, I'll be able to move it around, borrow against it easily, completely on-chain in under 10 minutes, and transact in it so much faster. Would I rather do that or have to, maybe even go show up at the county or some, title company closing and work with old school lenders that are slow if I ever wanted to borrow against it? And my answer was clearly, I would, and probably everyone would prefer the first one. So it became discourse around how can we ensure that the fidelity of ownership will remain? Are the intermediary entities that we end up having to use because the old ledgers themselves aren't upgraded, will they hold water? The trusts, the LLCs that will come to own land. And I received some great answers from Fede and Daniel on that, which I think their work should be open sourced and could be made available to the whole real world asset community.
100%. You touch an interesting point that Fede and Daniel's approach is interesting and should be open sourced. And then we'll come back to that question later. I think I want to move on to the question that everyone probably would be very interested. In fact, just earlier in this call, KingSync, who's a friend and VIP a customer of Namefi, asked the question of how people can verify the ownership of the land, whatever is tokenized on Fabrica land. And that was the same question Chase, a good friend of mine, was also asking just right before this call. Interestingly, I post on my profile a problem. Someone is trying to list your domain, even though it was not owned by them. They're trying to fraudulently post that on Afternic. So the kind of fraud in land transaction and domain transaction has been out there for years, and then it was a very bad problem. So Fede and Daniel, can you kind of explain to us how does land tokenization work in terms of engaging landowner and consumer engage of like legal framework, especially how do I know I own the land based on the NFT?
Yeah, let me answer that first. You can go on our website on the marketplace. The domain name is app.fabrica.land, and you can see all the properties that are on the marketplace. And when you click on a property, you will see some information about like description, pictures, where the property is located. And there's a box in the bottom right corner that says legal. It's not very sexy, I understand that. But if you look there, you will find a link to what we call the proof of title. And the proof of title is the document that is recorded at the county, so the local jurisdiction of that property, where you can see in the document, in the legal document, you will see the smart contract address and the specific token ID. And the document is signed in front of a notary and recorded at the county and is stamped by the county. What is that document? Now, let me tell what's the processes behind it so you get a sense of like what that document represents and why it is so important. When you tokenize a property, when you bring some land on chain, you can do it very easily. You can go to our website, type in the address of your property, and we do lookup for all the information that is available about the property. And then it comes to the point where we create a small legal instrument, a trust, that will hold the title of a property. And you, the owner, will sign a document that transfers the ownership of a property from yourself into that trust. So in a sense, you're almost renouncing to the property and putting it in the trust. But at the same time, that trust is assigned to you as the new NFT holder. So an NFT is minted and given to you. And possession of that NFT gives you full control and full rights to the trust that holds the title. So at the end of the whole process, you'll basically have an NFT in your hand that gives you control of that trust that holds the property. So effectively, you still own and control the property, but through that trust that is recorded at the county. And that document that you sign in front of a notary and we send to the county and the county is stamped, it's what proves that your rights to the property were granted into the trust, and that's recorded at the county. Then, to add some more information and context, you would have to also look at originally if that person owned the property in the first place, which is the big problem that like title insurance solves in the US. And when we on-ramp the properties, we basically perform some operations to look into the history of the title, and we verify that the person who is like granting the property into the trust is the last person that appeared and the deed, the previous deed at the county. So, and over time, we'll provide more and more certainty on that. So effectively, if you want to investigate into the ownership of a property or the NFT, you can literally go on our website and start from there, and you will find the pointers to the county and to the documents and all the material that you need to verify that token actually represent the ownership in that property. And let me be clear, I think we do a pretty good job. It is probably not perfect yet, and we're improving over time. And one easy way to get a sense of our path there is to look at what we call the confidence score. So for each property, we publish a confidence score. The confidence score is a number that represents a set of tests that we run on our servers, to some automated tests that basically look at all the information that we have about the properties and check if we cross-check that information. Basically, the higher the number, the safer, let's say, the property is. And I think over time we will implement and deploy more and more tests that will increase that number, and so the confidence that you can have in buying those NFTs. And probably like Daniel, I mean, you have like a lot of experience in that in terms of your real estate background and the work you've been doing with us for years. So I don't know if you want to add something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a really great intro into how we make title defensible. I think a couple things I want to add. First and foremost, we've been around the block for a while, and our goal is to be here for a long time to come. So we're very careful about how we kind of bring properties on chain, and we have the sort of tools and expertise to feel good about that. The one thing I wanted to respond to that Sam mentioned earlier about open sourcing the trust. We are definitely planning to open source the trust, and it's important to note that the trust itself is publicly available. Any property on our platform in the what Fede considers unsexy legal area, I would disagree, but anyone who wants to go to that, very much so. You can head into that legal section on any property and see the operating agreement, which is the trust agreement. It is what I consider a standard form that is still upgradable, but they're templatized. So We use the same trust agreement for every property that gets loaded. And, we're even working with counsel abroad to look into using that same model in other jurisdictions. And so, I want to say it is going to be open sourced in an official way, but I kind of consider it open sourced in an unofficial way already. And part of the reason that I think we really love this trust instrument that we've been developing, for several years now, comes back to another thing Sam mentioned, and that has to do with velocity. The trust instrument that we have built is extremely flexible, rooted in concepts of private contract, the ability to represent control and ownership of the trust via the NFT, be able to transact on that NFT in the way that we're used to on chain, instantly, permissionlessly, and have that update the ownership of the trust is something that I think we feel is, really one of our superpowers, and would love to see that trust model be used in other RWAs, and in further expanding use cases in real estate.
Yeah, let me jump in here quickly before we give back the voice to Victor. I want to recap a few things that we have said, especially since we have a few new listeners in the space. So I'm Fede, I'm the CEO and founder of Fabrica. We bring land on chain, real land. And with me, we have from Fabrica, that's Daniel, who was speaking. And basically what we do is that we take real properties and turn them into NFTs. How we do that is by granting the title in that trust and connecting that trust to an NFT. So you are in possession of the NFT. If you are in possession of the NFT, you have full control of a trust that owns the property. What can you do with that NFT? Well, you can sell it instantly on OpenSea. The moment a buyer comes in and buys the NFT, they become the owner of the property. So it takes like 30 seconds to close the transactions. A transaction compared to the usual process that can take weeks. What else can you do with NFT? You can use it as collateral. Bring it on NamefiSpace, bring it on Gondi, Arcade, any other NFT lending platform, and you can use that NFT as collateral and borrow against your land. So the market will decide how much capital to provide and the terms, but it's something that could take you like 30 seconds to get a loan on a plot of land. Something that off-chain would take forever if you're able to find the capital. Why is that? Well, when you're dealing with a $50,000, $100,000 plot of land, or maybe even something cheaper like $10,000 plot of land, it's very hard to go and walk into Chase or Wells Fargo and say, hey, I'd like to get a loan on my plot of land, $10,000. The kind of processes that they would have to do in offline world are so long and expensive that they don't make any sense on those properties. At the same time, those properties represent 100 million plots of land in the US with over 1 million transactions per year in the US alone. So we think it's a very interesting underserved market. That was a long recap. So Victor, please, over to you.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful recap. I think it kind of answers the question of how land tokenization work. Especially we have our distinguished listener, Michael Steiger here. I recall a conversation he and I had on one of the Twitter questions he asked. Like how domain names work out in the ICANN space. And we kind of have this legal issues. And I think the approach that you took, which is trust agreement, is really innovative. Though trust itself has been used, that's how we make it backward compatible. But you use it as a trust agreement, and then that trust agreement is general across different holders, like before and after the transfer. That's really innovative. And I love to kind of further, I think that's something we can further discuss. Is in fact, one of the key discussion we had is our RWA NFT initiative could open source a bunch of legal documents, smart contract standards, and other things for people to collaboratively use. I see that our good friend iHeartDomains raise your hand. I want to hand it over to you for your question, but before that, let me ask King Singh. You asked a question about how to verify domains or verify ownership of land. Did what Fadi and Daniel answer your question?
Hey, thanks a lot, all you guys. That was fantastic. Really helped explain how the whole trust works. My question, it was partially answered. More of, I've submitted a plot of land there on Fabrica. I'm just wondering what the next step you guys take is. Do you reach out to the assessor's office? If my property is already in a trust, how do you go about that? That was kind of my question. Do you take it out of my trust and then I have to update my trust? And how does that process work?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it short and then we can take it offline. But basically, what we do when you initiate the on-ramp, we immediately kick off a series of requests to the county assessor, to data providers to gather all the information about the property and start setting up the trust. And we also ask you, like, how is the property owned? And we verify that. And according to the current owner, we have different documents to set up the trust accordingly. So you could own the Fabrica trust directly into your name, or you could the trust could be owned through an LLC, or could be even through a trust. So you could have like a trust owning a trust that owns the property. So it pretty much depends on what you need to do and your needs in terms of structure. So our trust is a pretty thin structure, I would say, since it's only its goal is just to hold title in a digital way, and it's not meant to be used for estate planning or other purposes where you might want to have more structured approach around it. So think of it as a simple pointer at the county to connect the old school title to an NFT.
Very well. So thank you so much for explaining that. Yeah, just real quick, I'd love to hear what I Love Domains has to say, but I picked up I got sucked up in eBay auctions, there's a township, being broken up, and picked up these 40-acre plots in Lovelock, Nevada. Their claim to fame is their prison there for housing O.J. Simpson, as well as the bombing. They do the whole, they practice the bombing range over there. But anyway, long story short is I registered lovelock.land about 10 years ago. And my whole thing was I want to sell the domain name, but with the domain name comes a 40-acre plot of land. I had it up for about 5 years. Nothing really materialized because of exactly what we're talking about. There is no trust. What is the guarantee that someone buys the domain name and that the land gets transferred over alongside? But this actually solves that problem. So yeah, great to hear from you, and look forward to more.
Beautiful. And you should tokenize both the domain name and the land and sell them as a bundle. That's the way to do it. Really.
Yep, definitely. It's talking about ownership. We're just looking at like a new ledger that enables all those possibilities. You could tokenize both domain name and land and bundle them together. You could also use some kind of ERC 6551, which is NFT-based account, where you use one of them to own the other. So there's a bunch of things now that we enable the tokenization. There's a huge potential in different ways. I can go on, but if you are interested in hearing how that could work in a smart contract and technical side, so I drive the ERC authors meeting. And then this Thursday, we will have a conversation with the so-called ERC 404 and DN 404, two competing team or two collaborating team in this space to try to create proposals about how NFT can be treated in a fungible way, but that's a whole different story. I can share information there. That's more of academia kind of thing. If you're interested, come over and join. That'll be a Google Meet and YouTube streaming.
Yeah, right. And if you want the marketing side of it, it's like come for the domain name and stay for the land. That's how I would pitch the opportunity there.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think iHeartDomain, our good friend, has waited long enough. Let iHeartDomain go ahead, and then after that, I'll have also a question about off-ramp to you, Fatty and Daniel. So iHeartDomain, Marcus, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, kind of been tapping in and out, been running errands, and you'll probably already answered this. So two things. As a landowner myself, I'm thinking about putting a piece of land on the platform. I'll probably actually do that when I get home. What blockchain is this on? And then also from start to finish, how long does the process? So like King Steen was saying, I guess the first part of the process gets you up to the point where you got to start verifying with the counties and doing that. Does that process have to be complete before I can list my land, or is it immediately listable?
Okay. To both questions, like the first question, which blockchain we use, we are currently on a Ethereum mainnet. In the future, we'll also be available on some L2s, but for now, we are on Ethereum mainnet. As for how long does it take to on-ramp the property, the short answer is between 6 hours and 3 weeks. It very much depends on where the property is located. The good news is that, well, first, like in some counties, we're super fast. It's like less than a day and you'll have your NFT. And the other good news is that even when it takes longer, from a user standpoint, from your perspective, it's very easy. Literally, you just need to type in your address and we'll take care of the rest. And then when the documents are ready to be signed, we will receive a link. You'll sign online in front of a notary online from your computer. And in a matter of a few hours, you'll get your NFT airdrop. And actually, I noticed that we have a couple of Fabrica landowners in the Twitter space. So I see Land and Sound and I see Nick from Cougar DAO. So I don't know if you guys want to share your experience or how it was. I think Land and Sound, our own experience was especially very, very interesting since he's new to the blockchain and he basically joined the blockchain space thanks to us. We can take that as our credit in terms of he wanted to own land in a new way, and he decided to do it through Fabrica. I don't know if you're listening and you want to share your experience.
Definitely. And then if you are up for a coming up stage, you can raise your hand. I already sent out invitation to Land and Sound. And I didn't catch the other friend of yours. But yeah, anyone who are interested in hop on stage, just raise your hand. I'll invite you on stage and you can share your experience. I really like, Fatty, you said, like, you just type in the address, we take care of the rest. Like, the kind of rhyming marketing line is really helpful. Really love this. I know
And
that
I just want to add real quick, the interface is beautiful and very intuitive, easy to use. And I love the way that the description of the land is auto AI generated. And then you're able to go ahead and upload your own pictures. But the fact that they make it so simple for you that, you just, like you guys did with NameFi, you're trying to simplify the process. So I just want to throw that in there. So far, it's been a very enjoyable process.
Thank you. And Andy, he's in the audience too. He's our front-end designer. So kudos to him for that.
A big shout out to Angie. And I'm also very happy that KingSync, you are the customers of both of us so that you have your experience. We know that there's a lot of like rush and buzz about meme coin and then meme NFT. They are all great. They're all fun. We happen to also believe that there's a long way we can bring the world to not just fun, but also useful. So I think NameFi and Fabrica Land was working on that direction. Hedgehog, I know you raised your hand. If it's a short question, you can go ahead. If not, I'd like to have an opportunity to talk about off-ramp and forced off-ramp. So is that a quick question or a short question or a longer question, Hedgehog?
Hi, GM. It's a short question, if I may.
Okay, go ahead. You go first. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So what would happen, because it could happen, right? If, let's say, I lose the seed phrase to my wallet and I no longer have access to the NFT, what would happen then?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And keep in mind that even if you lose possession of your private key, you were the last person who are like basically appointed as trustee and beneficiary of a trust. This is the last transaction counts. So even if you don't have control of that NFT anymore, legally you still own the property. So we have designed a process that allows you to off-ramp the property. And basically it's a long process because it's designed to be slow to avoid double spending. So there are like technicalities behind it to protect any potential NFT buyer and the property itself. So yeah, but we have a process in place to basically allow you to regain control of the property directly into your name. And that's something that we are also like including in a trust instrument explicitly. And so we are like going to have a section of a trust agreement that explains how this process works. So it's very clear and people can look at it and challenge it. And like, so we'll find together ways to improve it, which is like how I think security should be. Security is clearly like the most important thing in what we do. And I believe in the idea of like, sharing and opening our processes to the rest of the world so that we can improve those processes together for everyone to benefit from that.
Totally. Actually, I asked this question to Fatty as well, and then we get asked the similar question about domain NFT ownership as well. Just like ICANN is the ultimate arbiter and governance for domain names, you can always like go and then take ICANN to the court like as a last resort to kind of recover your ownership of a domain. Land ownership have a longer history than many of the countries and nation states, and there's those kind of problems predates Fabrica Land and predates our industry as a whole as well. For example, if you're interested, look up like English common law property rights. Like you can literally take the land, and if the land is no one is using them, the court will deem them if you stay there and then openly occupy that for long enough. That's how even if a country doesn't exist, some of the human consensus has been there about who owns the land, and that's also what caused land ownership a lot more complicated. So our innovation in this space is going to be very, very interesting. I do see loud and sound. Fabrica Land's distinguished customer, raise your hand. I'd love to give you a chance to share what you have to say. Hi, Loud and Land. Thank you for joining us. Loud and
Hi,
Sound.
thank you. Hi, Fetty. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to pitch in because I heard you guys mention my name and talking about the timeline with on-ramping land. They were able to on-ramp land for me in Orange County, New York, and were extremely communicative the entire time. It took a little while because it's New York and it's very bureaucratic. Also, at the same time, on-ramped land in Siskiyou, California, and that's basically their bread and butter. That was like old hat to them, and it happened very quickly. And actually, I got both drops, ironically, at the same time. Like you guys mentioned, this was my foray into blockchain. I am learning more and more about it every day, but my main passion is land ownership. And for the goals that I have with the land that I have, this is the way for me, and I'm all in at this point. So I'm just excited to be in the room with you all, and I wanted to introduce myself.
Awesome, Land and Sound. I'm glad to connect to you, who is very, very passionate about land ownership. And I'm sure that's the direction of NFT and tokenizing real world assets like lands are going to help people like you who can have more flexibility and have more efficiency in dealing with land ownership.
Land and Sound, quick question for you. Have you considered co-ownership and rental of the tokenized land asset?
That's exactly what I have in mind, because I don't live in New York right now. I live in California. I've been periodically listing it for auction to try and get more views, and I would be interested in selling it, but I'm more interested in the future fractionalizing the ownership and sharing it with artists in New York City. It's about an hour north of New York City, close to the Hudson River. And I would love, once the bike and pedestrian path is built, giving access to the land, which is a project underway at this very moment. I would love for people to be able to gather there and possibly create some sort of artist token that gives people rights to use it for workshops, for recording arts, media production, photography, and build a culture around the places with people that actually are able to use it. Because I only go to New York a couple times a year, but I did live in New York at one time, and I know people there that I would love to share the land with. And this is a way to administer it in an entirely new way. And the more I talk about it to other people, it seems like a lot of other people that are interested in venue management are thinking about using blockchain this way as well.
One thing I want to highlight in what Aaron from Land and Sound just shared is that when we talk with our customers, it's very interesting because we are like always, I'm a tech guy, so I'm always about like, oh, the NFT, the ERC, whatever. And like you can use it as collateral, do this and that. And it's like almost like technical talk or legal talk. But then you talk with customers, it's like, hey, this is the land. There's like a bike path to get there. You can enjoy the river. And we're going to do like music festivals on it and so on. So these are real assets, like places you can enjoy in the real world out there, touch, put your feet on, and develop and do cool things with. And it's not just a digital asset, it's both things. So it has the power of a digital asset and its flexibility and speed and certainty. And at the same time, it has the features of the real world out there, but it's like scarce by definition and beautiful and unique.
This is totally beautiful. I shared what Land and Sound posted on your profile. Everyone else, if you're interested in hearing how Land and Sound has visioned a future of bringing artists and writers to outdoors and then to make recordings, leveraging Fabrica land and then digitized ownership, I've shared post. Feel free to check it out, follow, and make a share. But I want to bring it back to you. So these are all wonderful, like bright future. We share that, Fatty and Daniel. But in what happens when people want to move the land out of the trust or out of the NFT, or in our case, like we in the space have UDRP, where people will petition a domain to be taken away of the ownership if the owner have done something wrong with it, let's say use it for crime. So in the land, there's other things as well, like foreclosure and other things where the ownership can be forcefully removed and then shift. How does that work out in current trust agreement in the Fabrica model? Would you mind like take some minutes to kind of share a little bit about that?
Yes, well, you described two very different scenarios. Like one scenario is like I own a plot of land on Fabrica as an NFT, and for whatever reason I want to remove it from the platform and have it back in my own name. For example, because I might be selling to someone who wants to own it through the traditional system and they're not into technology. That's totally fine. And the process is super simple. You basically, as the NFT holder, you burn your token. We provide an interface for that, and that automatically starts the process on our side that we will generate the legal documents that you'll sign and we'll record the documents that are counted. So it's the mirror process of the on-ramp, it's the off-ramp. So it's basically the process to redeem your token into the title back into your name. And that it's an important one because it's clearly something we're not super happy to do in a sense because we'd love for properties to stay on the protocol. But at the same time, we acknowledge the importance of not locking in people. So the ability to on-ramp properties is as important as the ability to off-ramp them. There's no way you're going to on-ramp a property if you don't have certainty that at any moment in time, you can go back to the traditional system. So we have spent quite some time to make sure that this is as simple as possible and it's super fast. So that's the way it works. In terms when there are yeah, Sam, go ahead.
I wanted to branch off to one tangent. Let me know if this is not the right time, but thinking about not locking people in, which ensures the fidelity of the asset, and so as to give confidence, hey, Fabrica is not a bottleneck here. Can you help us understand what would happen to the ownership if Fabrica is not in business, and what kinds of legal protections then the holders get for their ownership in the land?
Of course. First of all, let me say it's always interesting when an investor asks you hey, what happens when you go out of business? Well, Sam, I don't know.
No, it's more that
kidding, come on.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I know.
Fail fast. The point is we want to.
That's okay. So
it's really just a matter of confidence, so that it does not serve as a bottleneck for users to onboard.
Okay. No. So I think the beauty of our system is something we don't talk a lot about, but when you set up a trust, Fabrica is not on the trust. We are not manager of your property. We're not trustee. It's fully decentralized. We help you set up a trust to hold your property. You control the trust. You own the property. If we go out of business, your trust keeps on living by itself. It's still alive. We are not in the middle of it. It's fully decentralized. That's very different from other approaches. Even if you look at other asset classes, think of USDC or USDT, where technically there are some assets in a custodial system where Circle or Tether basically are holding the assets and they provide you a token that you can trade that represents those assets, but they are in the middle. In our case, we're not. Again, we're not between you and your property. It's a trust that you control. So if we run out of business, nothing changes for you. And since we want this to be fully decentralized and interoperable, we publish online full documentation about our protocol. You can work with our smart contract directly. So if our website goes down for whatever reason, you can fully operate on your properties. And we even have a completely detached small application to burn your token. So there's sort of like a safety exit. How do you say, an emergency exit that you can always use to off-ramp the properties. And we provide you all the tools, even without should we not be around anymore.
That's great.
That's wonderful. And also, I think we're at time. It has been grand. An hour has fly fast. And then thank you, Fedi, and Daniel and Sam for being on our stage. And thank you, Sunny, have been doing a lot of research and behind the scene work. For everyone else, if you like the kind of content and the kind of conversation, follow Namefi, follow me, follow all the guests here. We hope to have more conversation like that in the future. I also shared a few notes and posts that's relevant to our conversation. And you always welcome to tweet, always welcome to reply to some of the notes. If you have any questions within this hour time limit, always post it. We're happy to answer you. And as always, this is NamefiSpace. We're very honored and very grateful to have you here. We look forward to our future conversation with you. If you have any questions, any interested speakers you want to listen to about, especially in the space of how we can make RWA tokenized, how can we make NFT useful, let us know. Namefi is in here for you.
Thanks a lot, folks. That was a great time. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
To the power
Thank
of
you.
new
Thank you for having us.
ledgers. Bye.
Yep. And then don't forget to follow the guests. Bye.